Greetings. Welcome to a Simmer and Forslund podcast. Rob Simpson here, John Forslund there. Hello, John.
Hello, Simmer.
Pretty exciting on Saturday night as the Seattle Kraken defeat
Wow,
the Vancouver Canucks 4-3.
that was great. That was a needed win, and they did it in gutsy fashion, which is prototypical of their game. So hopefully that continues.
All right, we'll get more into that in just a second. I'm starting the timer right now. Today we're going to talk about our favorite, not necessarily our favorite, but we're going to talk about 29s. And I
Okay.
will allow you to go first because I kind of have a
Oh,
funny thing about the number 29s right now today. Go ahead.
mine is Ken Dryden, great Montreal Canadiens goalie. Walked off the college campus and turned it into a stellar career, a Stanley Cup winner. Short career, though. He decided to walk away from the game, which is kind of like his personality. And then he went on to be a politician, an author, and great guy, great guy. So that's mine, Ken Dryden.
Very good. Of course, wrote The Game, which is one of the
Yep,
great hockey books of all time. And
yep.
on one of my programs, I believe it was a Maple Leaf America, because he was president of the Leafs at one point. I got him to do the shtick with me at the end of the show where he
Uh,
pretend to lean on the stick. That was beautiful.
yeah.
He was reluctant, but he eventually.
And his first mask was iconic.
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure it gave him a lot of protection, but it's
the
interesting.
colors. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with that theme for my 29. First, jokingly, I was going to go Randy Ladouceur, which would have been a
Oh, yeah.
Detroit Red Wing and a Hartford Whaler.
That's right.
But I'm going with Mike Palmateer. I know I've met Kenny, never met Palmateer, but I'm going with him just because I was at the Hall of Fame festivities this past week in Toronto and talked about in the old days growing up on the border in the US. We got Hockey Night in Canada on Saturdays, and we got Leafs hockey on Wednesdays. So I grew up watching Roger Nielsen's Toronto Maple Leafs with Andre Saint Laurent and Errol Thompson, Daryl Sittler,
Yeah.
Boreas Allen, and of course Mike Palmateer. And someone else told me reminded me of the story about when Harold Ballard fired Nielsen and then rehired him and wanted him to come out on the bench wearing a bag over his head as a big
Those were the days, man.
as a
Those
big
were the days.
as a
And
big
the
reveal.
and the obligatory shot once per game on Hockey Night of Canada of Ballard and King Clancy in the little booth there, right?
Yeah,
Maple Leaf Gardens and Hockey Night in Canada. So
yeah.
that had to happen by contract.
The cement box in the corner.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Number 29. It's beauty. All right, back to this Vancouver win. Just how big? I mean,
Well,
Dave Haxtell doesn't like to talk about benchmark games and milestone games, but come on,
yeah.
that's a big one.
That's a big win. It's huge. I think when you look at the stops and starts of this season, that's been the problem, right? They've had pockets of time where things have been really good within games and they've let games slip away. There have been games where they've won and then you're looking for the follow-up and the follow-up wasn't there, especially when they come back at home. So this was a game to validate 3 out of 4 points in that tough back-to-back situation. You know, they come off a stinging loss in Edmonton, a game they probably should have won. They get a point, they lose in overtime, and then they come home and here's the old shootout again, right? And everybody's ready to bury the Kraken because they can't win in a shootout. They managed to gut that one out, and I think that propelled them into this game in Vancouver against a very good team that's off to a terrific start from the goal out. And I like how they played, Simmer. I think that's the key. It's not necessarily the result, it's how they played. They played to their identity. They've been chasing their identity a little bit, to be fair, but it was all there. It was gritty. It was good. They were great plays. There were plays where you needed a lot of guts to go to the front of the net to make it happen. That happened. There was an outstanding penalty kill in the third period, which was their best of the season, maybe their best ever, that 1-2 minute sequence. So, lot to the good. And now they just have to continue to follow that up with each game as they move forward.
Yeah, played to their identity and stayed disciplined. The noticeable thing was they stayed out of the freaking box, especially through
You
the
have
first
to against
period.
that team. Yeah.
I'm just taking a peek over because I'm here in the hockey cabin. I'm seeing a lot of smoke coming outside here, and I'm just making sure I haven't lit the living room on fire, but we're okay.
Thanks. Be
Um,
careful.
yeah, the other things that kind of leap out about this, we hear about the Vancouver's kind of using the schedule as an excuse. We're fatigued, 5 games a day. This is one of the 2 busiest months on the schedule for the Kraken as well. So that part of it, and statistically, talking about what you brought up there, twice they've had an opportunity to get to 500 and both times they lost. So here they are, Calgary on Monday, chance to get to 500. This will be their third chance, of course, because they started the season 0-2, 0-3-1, and have never been to 500. So here they go, they get another opportunity.
Well, make good in the division, take advantage of those quote unquote 4-pointers, and pay back Calgary too, because it was Calgary that turned their season around kind of a few weeks ago when they came in here on a 6-game skid, won the game 6-3. Mangiapane with the cross check on Jared McCann. You know, there's a lot going into this game on Monday night. So, but most importantly, you know, keep a team below you down. Keep that differential in terms of the points in the standings where it needs to be, and make good on great efforts. If you have a great effort, it's only as good as the next one. You can't keep continuing with your process of taking steps in reverse. I think that's the thing that's been hurting the team so far.
Matty Beniers, we've talked about the sophomore slump before. We're almost a quarter way of the season, but who cares when it happens? It looks like, and we've seen him back-to-back games with a goal, 3 goals in 6 games. You can see the difference. No?
Yeah, because I don't think he's making defensive mistakes like he has been. You know, he's a little bit lost at times this year defensively, and that's something we didn't see in his rookie year. If he went through point droughts, he always seemed to make the right play at the right time defensively to help the team. He was putting the team in some tough spots based on, you know, lack of assignments, or I'm not going to say he was cheating the game at all, but it looked like he was pressing offensively. And I think, you know, now that seems to be getting back to where it needs to be. He's playing with more confidence, as is the team, right? And I think that's a big part of it. And Jordan Eberle had a 3-point game in Vancouver, and if he can come back from what he's just been through and, you know, pick up the offensive side of the game in concert with Beniers, that's going to be a terrific thing. So hopefully that continues too.
It didn't take long for him to bounce back from the skate blade cut to his leg at practice on the Wednesday. I mean, pretty quick recovery.
Right. And that could have been really serious. It was very close to being a situation where it would have put his season, you know, in question maybe, and who knows what else. But thank God that didn't happen. And I'm not surprised he came back as fast as he did. But he's also come back to pick it up a little bit too, and add to the offense, because that's been lacking in his game and others. But he's a big part of it.
I'm going to talk about the skate blade thing a little bit later here as well. By the way, since you just brought that up, we'll keep it right here. 39 last year, 303 even strength goals led the National Hockey League, the Kraken. This year, 39-30. They have 30. They've given up 39 at even strength. So the scoring part at even strength, their bread and butter without a superstar team, needs to get going. Fortunately for them, their power play is 7th ranked in the league. So it's almost like they're a little off kilter in a way, in a good way.
I just think it's, you know, the rolling of lines, and one line goes out and has a good shift, and then the next line goes out and it's just average. The next line goes out, it's a little bit better or worse. And that seems to be at 5-on-5 what's ailing the team, in my opinion. But, you know, the last few games this past week, what we've been able to see is more consistency. You know, even the Edmonton game, what gets lost is the result and the comeback by the Oilers. But the lion's share of the game belonged to the Kraken. Yep. And Edmonton was lucky to get away with that game and feel good about it. And the Kraken felt miserable about that game. But, you know, they came home and the Islanders scored first. It wasn't ideal the way that game started. But then in that first period, they started to build a game, as the coaches like to say. And shift by shift, it got better and better. And then they took it to Vancouver. You know, and so I think it's going to carry over. I really do, because that's their DNA, and it's relentless each shift. And it doesn't mean you have to have a great scoring chance. It just means you have to play solid. You got to move the puck faster than they have been to get it up the ice. You got to get back in defensive position better than they have been. There were little pockets in the first period in Vancouver where the Canucks had some room through the middle in the first period, and it looked like, well, you can't give these guys room. Don't do it. They fixed it. You know, they fixed it, and we'll see where it goes this week.
I noted the lines in terms of statistically, 12 games is the most. And that would be the Yanni Gord, Tolvin, and Bjorkstrand line. They've been given the most for a total of 12 games. 9 for Matty Beniers since they put Eberle back on his wing. So obviously that's just a sign that Dave Haxtell, the head coach, has had to really move things around to try to get this damn thing going. But it seems like they're starting to find these combinations.
The hardest thing for a coach at this level is to stick with something that's not working because you believe that it will. And a good coach will do that. It's easy sometimes to put it in a blender and just shake everything up all at once, and then you might get the same result, maybe not. Maybe you'll get a little cheap speed out of it. But I think the real good coaches, and he's one of those, I mean, he's going to believe in his combinations. He's going to give them time to get through whatever they're trying to get through. And it was collective there for a while. And I think that's what was ailing the Kraken early in the season, Simmer, is the fact that it was collective. It seemed like everybody was going through it at the same time. This isn't a complete dig out yet. They have a lot to prove. And a lot of it will be proven on this 3-game homestand. There's no question.
Yeah, take advantage of the home cooking, something they haven't done. By the way, since you're on the topic of throwing it in the blender, injuries precipitated Shane Wright and Ryan Winterton coming up from the American Hockey League. We haven't spoken in a couple of weeks on here. What did we think if you were to grade out the two of them for that brief period of time?
In Wright's case, he's a better player, which is good. You can see the difference. It's marked improvement. You can really see the difference in where he was, where he is, where he's going. With Winterton, it's like an awakening. It's like here's a player who you're getting your first look at. He has a lot of hope and potential attached to that name, and if you can hit it 1, 2, 3 in the first draft with Beniers, Riker, Evans, and Winterton, that's not too bad. And I know the Kraken believe there's more from the first draft that we will see at some point. But it's all good. They came up at a real difficult time, too. It felt bad that these players were kind of caught in the misery of what was going on at the time. And they were here for one of the hardest practices Haxtell's had in his tenure as the Kraken coach a week ago. It was one that needed to happen, and hopefully that was a message sender. But it helped their conditioning, put them back in the American Hockey League, and where they'll continue to develop. But I think it's good because it didn't look like they were out of place at all. And in Shane Wright's case, playing the middle of the ice in the NHL level, as you know, is real hard. Really hard. And for him, he's going to have to be a top end forward. He's not going to come up in a support role. When he does play here, he's going to be asked to contribute and contribute a lot. That's the ceiling for him, and that's what he's working on.
Ryan Winterton is impressive because, like Wright, they both missed a year of development in the OHL because of COVID. Right. Season canceled. And he had multiple shoulder injuries and had surgeries and all this and came back and was incredible at the development camp in the summer. He won didn't win, but he was one of the top fitness guys and everybody was impressed. So he would be a pretty remarkable story to put it together. So a cool opportunity for Ryan Winterton. Goaltending. Okay, we talked a little bit about special teams. We're going to kind of go through the basics here and the two most obvious people on the ice whenever they're playing is Philip Grubauer and Joey Decord, ranked, and I'm just throwing the numbers out, I believe 30th, that would be Decord, and 38th in terms of goals against average in the National Hockey League. And of course, there's only 32 teams, Josh, so that's not great. And their save percentage is in the high 89-ish area, which coincides with their goals against. I mean, yay, nay? Does it feel like Gruby's coming around?
Yeah, for some reason you throw all those numbers out and it doesn't sound very good, obviously, but this is a little bit different for me. I don't see it as a problem. I don't see the goaltending as a situation here was put the Kraken where they're at right now, aching to get back to 500, looking up at a few teams in the division, kind of an indifferent start at the beginning, better, recently, but still looking to hit their stride. I don't know. I think that would be an unfair accusatory finger to point at goaltending at this stage. I think both guys have played well. Both guys have done their jobs. They've been in every game. It hasn't been a situation where you're flipping goalies because one guy just isn't doing it. Maybe Decord has been a little sharper in his full body of work than Grubauer, but Joey was also given an opportunity to run when he was hot. And I think now is a time for Grubauer. Grubauer kind of took a step out. Same thing happened last year. Yep. It seems like it's the front end of the season where they have to get him adjusted a little bit mentally. And I liked his game in Vancouver, and I expect him to go against Calgary, and we'll see where it falls, the rest of the week. It's interesting because I think the schedule has been hard, and there's been a lot of games, obviously, but there is some light here. If they have the 3 home games, so it's going to be good for the team to be at home, and then there's a break before they have to play Chicago a week from Tuesday. They'll finally get a pocket of time. So my point is, they don't necessarily have to play both goalies this week, but they probably will. So I would think it's a Grubauer situation, and we'll just see where it falls.
Well, Groovy was out to lunch at training camp, so maybe that's factors into how he's been off to weird slow starts. Because yes, Martin Jones last year did take over for a while. Part of it was the injury to Grubauer.
Part was injury, but
Jones he kept going.
Right.
He kept going. He carried this team.
Right. And as an observer, Philip Grubauer, and not getting too deep into this with him or the goalie coach or anything like that, just watching this, it appears that he's at his best when he's challenged.
Yeah.
And a good goalie like Decord, a good young goalie who plays differently, right? So because of his puck handling ability, the team has a different approach when Decord's in goal than when Grubauer's there. But that's okay, because there's the other side that's game planning against this and trying to figure out, which goalies are going to be, because they're vastly different. But when you have a good young goalie pushing Philip Grubauer, he needs that. I think he really needs that. So I'm not overly concerned with the sub 900 save percentage. You want it north of 90, there's no question. I don't get involved in quality starts and expected goals against and a lot of that stuff. I just watch the game and see who's stopping the puck. That's about it.
Yes, I would be an eyeballer as well, as opposed to a mathematician.
Yeah, that's it.
But you can see now why Dave Haxtell does not like to reveal his goalie after the morning skate, even though it's sometimes obvious.
And that's his prerogative too. I know everybody gets up in arms, but until we get a mandate from the league, probably because of wagering, then the coaches don't have to do that. I think, if I were he, I would do the same thing. I'd be like, I don't know, come tonight and find out who's in goal. Listen, the other side that's the other thing too. The other side's so well prepared, they're ready. Yeah. So it really doesn't matter. They have all the video, they have the scouting reports, they tell the teams where to shoot on certain guys, where the tendencies are. So I think it's a lot about nothing.
Right. Well, I wrote about a couple of weeks ago. I just flat out asked Hack. I said, "Why do you do it? Is there a reason you do it?" And a number of reasons. I asked Torts that same question 10 years ago. I got a much different answer. But Hack basically said, "Yeah, I don't see any real reason to throw it out there. Let them figure it out later on as the day wears on." All right, we brought up the net guard, or not the net guard. You brought up we brought up the cut to Eberle, and of course we have the Adam Johnson thing in Nottingham, the death of the former Pittsburgh Penguin, the throw cut. I was just buzzing around, running around doing the thing. Didn't really get a chance to look at it a whole lot, but it's not a hockey play. It's clearly not a normal hockey play. And this Matt Petgrave guy has been arrested on manslaughter. Some say it's just a formality as they investigate the whole thing. But I'm telling you, I look at it and I don't like it. And I'm not going to go too far down this road right now, but that was not a hockey play. And that is not the typical reaction of a player making contact the way, not even close to the body reaction that one has in that situation. It's weird. It's just weird.
Yeah. When it first happened, obviously you're taken back by the whole situation. It's tragic. And then a couple people texted me and said, "Have you seen this?" And I didn't want to look at it, right? But I did. I looked at it once. I didn't roll it back and look at it. I just looked at it once and I was like, "Ooh."
Hey, you don't.
These were hockey people. These were hockey people.
You didn't need to roll. You didn't need to roll it back. Once is enough because it's abnormal.
Right. And so that's the whole thing. So we'll see where all of this goes. And again, it's going to make the players in this league and elsewhere, look at more protection and look at the situations where, should they all be wearing neck guards? I don't know. Again, that's a player specific thing. So I think at some point they'll get there. There's enough young players that are wearing them on the way up. So I think they're used to it. Some guys just feel like it's a little bit warmer than it should be, and that's why they don't like to wear them. There's comfort, but we went through this with helmets, right? So eventually we'll get there, and it's all about safety.
And it's Yanni Gourde so far is the only guy for the Kraken, right? I think. As
far as I know, yeah.
And eventually we'll get grandfathered in. What comes to mind for me, and it's obviously way more extreme with these guys, but when Matt Cook stepped on the back of Erik Karlsson's ankle by his Achilles tendon and tried to make it look like he wasn't doing it on purpose, guys do stupid, what, in situations, competitive moments, and especially if they're kind of dirty, and it's happening quickly. But it seems to me this guy was thinking, oh, I'll kick him or I'll do something in the moment, and obviously way beyond Matt Cook or anyone else. So we'll see what happens. But that's the initial reaction for me. I'm sorry. When I see it, I'm like, this is not. And I've played. I know everybody, any athlete. If it was soccer or football, you don't fly that way.
Right.
When you make that degree of contact that is, in that position.
Right.
Anything bugging you right now, John? You got anything that's anything on the club, anything on the team?
Nothing bugging me. That's always good, right? No.
I thought I'm not a guy that ever complains about officiating because it equals out. Both teams always have a reason to bitch about something, but I was not overly impressed with the officiating in the game Vancouver hosting Seattle. I thought it was just kind of a weird game. It was one of the few times
there's a little bit
stood out for me.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on every night, every game.
Yeah.
I think where we're at here is, to be fair, I think we have a lot of new referees.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of combinations working together for the first time. And this is a thing that happens probably every 5 years, every 6 years when guys retire and new ones come in and they're trying to find their way and they're trying to please the boss and they're, doing things by the book and not having a feel for the game. And the veterans working with them and they're kind of like, hey, this is my show, kid. I think that's what we see. This is another topic because it's always eve of mine, but I don't understand why they don't work together more than they do.
Yeah.
So
the pairings.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I would see it more or less the way it used to be, and maybe still is, of baseball, where they crew them.
Yeah.
And they're used to working with each other. I think there's a harmony and a feel for games. There's another train of thought that governs this. Obviously, they don't think so, but I think that would help. And I think it would help younger officials and it would help the older guys understand that part of their job is to help these guys along. Yeah. Instead of just letting them stand on an island, make a call, and then everybody's judged, for the postseason based on their efficiency, right? So their ratings each game, they get to the end of the year, and the best of the best work the playoffs, and then it trims down as we go to the fourth round. But it doesn't put some of these younger guys, I think, in a really good spot when they're blowing into town. And who am I working with tonight? This guy's got 15 years on me. This guy's got 6 years on me. It's kind of a mixed bag. So that's my soapbox on that.
Yeah, it's actually a great idea. I think it's great.
I think so.
I think it's great. I talked to a number of guys, officially. I talked to Gary Roberts, some players that were around for the one ref system, and officials that obviously worked, built a career by himself. And the feel, they think the game's too fast now, that you can't keep up, you can't watch everything because it's just happening, this, that, and the other thing, and stuff behind the play. But it's always been that way. The dirty crap has always been there behind the play, and they're not going to go back to one. They've got to have two. but your thing would make it closer to one in that you'd have the harmony, two guys thinking as one more frequently.
It's no different than what I do. I mean, in a way, I feel at ease when I'm working with a familiar partner. I work with a lot of different people, but when the other 2 weeks ago, I worked with Darren Pang, for the first time in a long time. I don't think we had done a game in like 3 years. It came out great, but it's you got to get used to it again. And so if you're officiating a game, which is more important, and it's changing from city to city all the time. I don't know. I guess it makes sense. This is how they do it. But to me, it would be like, all right, you're Wes McCauley. You're going to get this guy maybe for 5 weeks,
right?
Bring him along, and you're going to get rated on as a tandem. Right. How well you do as a tandem, because that's what we do. Yet, you have 2 referees, and then when you get to the playoffs, you're mixing and matching with different people, and I think it confuses the game. And I think you're right. Those of us that are old enough to remember one referee, you knew what kind of game it was going to be based on the referee. And the players knew that. So if it was Wally Harris back in the day, or if it was Bruce Hood back in the day, or Bill Friday, whatever it was, the players knew how to play. Because, Kerry Fraser called the game this way. This is Van Helleman did it this way. There was something to that. Then when we got together with a 2-referee system because of the speed of the game, and everybody seeing everything, well, there's positional play too, high and low, and who does this and who does that. To me, teamwork is important. Why does that change every game?
Yeah. You know what, too, for a league that's always trying to save a nickel, off the top of my head, you'd think that it might be cheaper also to move guys around as a unit, but instead of coming and flying all over, who knows?
Well, they ask them to live in certain cities, for travel. Yeah. You could regionalize it a little bit and then move them out west, but not for long stretches or not randomly. I'm a little ignorant to how they schedule, so I shouldn't really get too far into that. Maybe there's more to it than I see, but that's what I see, because there's a lot of head scratching going on, especially early in the season, where a lot of these younger officials are getting opportunities to break in. And I had a good conversation with Brad Watson in Denver about this, and wasn't more specifically about the 2-man or 1-man system. It was more or less about the younger referees and how they nurture them along, and how they have to critique them, and where they can go with them and where they can. And a lot of these guys, because they need more younger officials. It's hard to find real qualified people to do this job. They have to bring them along slowly. They have to be careful with how they do it. So
it's funny you bring up his name, because Brad Watson, former NHL referee, now a supervisor. I had a similar conversation with him in Seattle a couple of weeks ago, because he's in the region. And
that's right.
Handles the West. On that note, Johnny boy, our buzzer just went off, because we are pushing the 29-minute mark. The Mike Palmateer, the Kenny Dryden, and the Randy Laddiser. And of course, I must note, being somewhat of an old jock Cro-Magnon, notice here at the hockey cabin. Look at that, John. Are you kidding me right now with the Neanderthal?
That's stellar.
Interior decoration.
I like that.
To the 9th. See, I kind of know what's going on.
That's total commitment. I'm not surprised.
All right. I reckon we'll see you at the rink more than once in the coming days. Always enjoy your outstanding efforts, John Forslund, at John Forslund on Twitter X. I'm at Simmerpuck, and you can watch us old episodes. Simmerpuck is the YouTube and all that good stuff. Johnny Kid, have a terrific rest of the day and night, tomorrow and the next day, and we'll see you soon.
Have a great holiday this week, everyone. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Happy Thanksgiving this week to everybody. Good morning. Thank you.